It's been so long since I've been able to cover the Tales franchise. That franchise and handhelds in the West just have not gotten along for a couple generations. Across the DS, 3DS, PSP, and PlayStation Vita, there were almost 20 Tales games, only 3 of which actually came to the West. But with the Nintendo Switch, we finally have access to a Tales game that's not only one of the most highly acclaimed games of the series, but a chapter of the franchise that I missed out on because in the West it was exclusive to the Xbox 360. Remade after 10 years and now available on handhelds, here is my review for Tales of Vesperia Definitive Edition for the Nintendo Switch. The story of Vesperia takes place in a world where a magical substance called air is used to fuel Blastia, special machines that are used to allow people to use magic and create barriers around towns to protect everyone from monster attacks. The plot revolves around Yuri Lowell, a resident of a low-income community who has its Blastia core stolen, cutting them off from their water supply. After investigating the thief and becoming a criminal himself, he flees the country so he can go on a journey to recover the core and bring it back to his people. Now overall, the plot of Vesperia is very good, mostly because of 2 things. It has a very colorful and funny cast, and it goes a few places that JRPGs rarely ever go. I can't really say what happens due to spoilers, but this JRPG protagonist does a few things that'll even surprise JRPG veterans. But there's also something that happens in the story that I don't like. This will contain very minor spoilers, so if you don't want to know anything about the game, feel free to skip to the gameplay section. But anyways, in Arc 2 the party forms a guild of sorts, and every single time they make a decision for over half of the second arc, they constantly argue and fight over whether it's something a guild should do, what are the rules on this big event that's happening, on whether they should even care or not. Now when this first happened, it did make a little bit of sense because of how the story goes. But when you have that for every single event for over half a story arc, it feels a lot more like padding to make the cutscenes longer than actual plot points. When it comes to gameplay, Tales of Vesperia is a console-style action RPG with some puzzle elements thrown into the mix. Before we really dive in, Definitive Edition is basically a remake. And this remake is not based on the Xbox version of Vesperia, but the Japan-only PS3 version. As such, all of the new content the PS3 version had over the 360 version is here, including redone story scenes, new dungeons, new skits, and a ton of new story arc stuff involving the new party member Patty. All of this content has never been in a Western version of the game before, so if you've only played Vesperia on the 360, there's a lot more here than you think. With progression in mind, Vesperia isn't really that different from most console-style JRPGs. You've got an overworld map that you can explore and a story that constantly pushes you towards new towns, dungeons, battles, and bosses. It even goes further into the retro formula, with the fact that you can only go on foot for a while, and you eventually gain access to a water-based ship and an airship so you can go to new continents. But the 2 things that really stick out are the 2 things I love about the Tales franchise, the first of which are the skits. As you wander around the game, be it on the overworld map, in towns, or in dungeons, you will constantly get notifications for little skits, optional portrait-based cutscenes where the party will talk about something. Some of these are around recent story events, but a lot of them are character background and character interaction events where you see a funny little scenario play out depending on who's in your party. I love how comedic and funny these little skits are, and they kind of give you a feel like you're watching an anime, which makes sense because a lot of the Tales games have anime adaptations. The second thing I love is the combat system. The 3D combat engine for the Tales franchise is like an arena brawler with 2D side-scrolling elements. You can freely roam around the 3D arena, but when you actually start attacking and stringing combos with skills together, it switches to a 2D perspective with a kind of side-scrolling feel to it, much like the previous Tales games did. And once you start dishing out combos and linking your physical attacks with skills, it really becomes a flashy spectacle that sometimes I just switch to auto battle so I can just watch how beautiful everything is. The only unfortunate thing is they didn't change Vesperia's battle system in this remake. As such, a lot of the physical attack combos feel very clunky, and there is no free roam in the 3D arena without holding down one of the trigger buttons. In some of the more recent entries of the series, especially the Radiant Mythology series, you don't have to hold down a button to free roam in the 3D arena. But in this game, you have to hold down the ZL button the entire time, or it will default back to the side-scrolling perspective. There are also some other quality of life things that Vesperia just didn't have by default, like you having to synthesize special items if you wanted to play as other characters or change the party's leader in dungeons. However, these quality of life issues can easily be forgiven because of the free DLC packs that actually include all of these items, so if you download the DLC and redeem it in the DLC part of the item inventory, you don't have to make those items, you can do those things by default. Unfortunately, there is one thing about Vesperia that the DLC didn't fix, and that's all the confusion with the side quests. Vesperia has dozens of side quests you can do, but it's very hard to find them without a guide. The game doesn't really do much to tell you where and when they are, and almost all of them have a very limited time frame for when they can spawn. If you don't rest at the inn in this town 4 times between these 2 story events, you're going to miss out on this very particular side quest, so you can't realistically do all of them without a guide and knowing when all of them start. And speaking of content, let's go into content and length. Vesperia isn't exactly known for being a short game. I reached the final boss after playing for about 35 hours, and a lot of time got shaved off because 1, I didn't know where almost all of the side quests spawned, and 2, whenever I needed to level grind, I just used one of the free DLC's instant level up items to basically grind in an instant. If you did things proper and did know where the side quests are, I would gauge it more at 45 to 50 hours. Now let's dive into presentation. Graphically, the game looks very good when it's docked. There were a few jagged edges here and there, but otherwise, now when you go into handheld mode, it does look a bit worse. There are a lot more jagged edges, and depending on what cutscene you're doing, it does have a significant amount of blurring. Now with the performance, there's mostly good and one minor problem. The frame rate is perfect. It runs at 60 FPS out of battle and a locked 30 FPS in battle. The minor thing is crashing. I say minor because it only happened twice throughout over 30 hours of gameplay. The game didn't really crash in response to a particular thing, it was just kind of random, but it did happen a couple times, so save often. Now let's dive into battery life, which is pretty surprising. Given how this game looks and plays, I didn't expect to get much. But Tales of Vesperia has a battery range of 2 hours and 53 minutes on high settings, up to 3 hours and 42 minutes on low settings. Now in conclusion, Tales of Vesperia Definitive Edition is definitely a solid action RPG with a ton of content. Now on the downside, there are some problems ranging from the story padding and clunkiness of battle to the minor crashing issues and the side quest confusion. It's definitely a good game for series fans, especially if you missed it from not having a 360. Reviews to Go rates Tales of Vesperia Definitive Edition for the Nintendo Switch an 8 out of 10. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below or head to the website at reviewstogo.com.